Hi friends, I hope you have a wonderful day, and this time I'm gonna be reacting to the F1 driver that changed everything. This sounds interesting, so yeah, let's just dig in.
One of the icon of Formula One.
The best driver in Grand Prix racing.
He is in Brazil, is in my heart, he always has been.
It will be his 37th Grand Prix win.
Ayrton was one of the best.
Best driver in the world by a long way.
He was really the first kind of icon in the sport, pretty unique individual.
Senna, to the delirious delight of his countrymen.
He was definitely one of the best ever driving Formula One.
This is the best thing that could possibly have happened for Grand Prix racing.
When we start debating on who's the greatest racing driver of all time, a few names always come up, but one seems to always stand out from the rest. A driver known not only for his achievements on track, but also heavily from his off-track actions. I'm pretty sure you won't find anyone who doesn't recognize the name Ayrton Senna. But just how good was he? Is he overrated? Does he truly deserve to be crowned the GOAT? Let's find out.
I wanted to check this before, but from the name of the video I couldn't catch it, if it's gonna be him.
It's rare for a driver to grip the motorsports world right off the start of their career as much as Ayrton Senna did, so it's only right to go back to the very beginning. And before I cover his F1 debut, I want to touch on how he got there in the first place. On the 21st of March 1960, he was born in Sao Paulo into a pretty wealthy family. No surprise there. His father bought him a kart when he was just 4 years old, but his first race came 9 years later when he turned 13. After karting for another 8 years, he moved to England in 1981 to make the jump to open-wheel racing. Between 81 and 84, he won 5 championships, including the British Formula 3 Championship in 83. This year was famous for his battle with Martin Brundle, with both of them fighting each other hard until the very last race. In recent years, we've heard Brundle repeatedly name Senna as his greatest rival ever, and talking about the incredible skill that he had. Brundle's appreciation for this year in F3 he spent battling Senna speaks to how amazing he was.
I could beat him on my day, but that's the key phrase, on my day, because the great drivers have many more of their days, and he did have that natural talent, that sixth sense they all have.
The next step for Senna was clearly Formula One. While fighting for the British F3 title, he tested F1 cars for Williams, McLaren, Brabham, and Toleman. Lotus, McLaren, and Brabham all wanted to sign him, and even offered him contracts. They wanted to sign him as a development driver and give him an F1 seat down the line though, while Senna wanted to race in F1 straight away. With this in mind, he turned these deals down and signed for Toleman instead.
Sem dúvida não carro para ganhar uma corrida. Ele não vai ter condições de competir contra uma Ferrari, uma Renault, uma Brabham, mas carro para subir no pódio.
Toleman were a small, tight-knit team on a less than ideal budget, but it gave Senna a route into F1, which was all he really wanted to do. So, after he won the British F3 title, the 24-year-old Brazilian made his Formula One start in Brazil in '84. But the hard work really starts when you get to F1. The start of his debut year was full of unreliability, and the car wasn't very fast either. It was difficult for Senna to show his skills inside the cockpit, and he was desperate to score some solid results. Senna had only finished 2 of the first 5 races and finished P6 in both. Toleman introduced a new car for the 5th race in France, but it didn't magically bring them to the front of the grid. But his career was about to take a massive turn at the very next race. On the 2nd of June 1984, qualifying for the Monaco GP took place, and it was looking like another typical race weekend. Senna qualified 13th. Even with his 2 brilliant 6th place finishes that year in the uncompetitive car, it would be extremely hard to replicate that on race day in Monaco. The streets are just too tight to make up that many positions, regardless of how good you are behind the wheel. Well, that's what everyone thought anyway, because Sunday was far from normal. It brought some of the worst rain the Principality had ever seen. F1 race weekend or not, the conditions were catastrophic. So bad, in fact, that a lot of the drivers didn't even want to race because they thought it was so unsafe.
I remember, and at the beginning of the race, '84, was raining a lot. We were talking about is it good to start the race?
Mind you, we're in 1984. This wasn't common at all, but that didn't stop F1 from going ahead with the schedule and throwing that green flag. It was Senna's first street race in F1, and the challenge was made even more daunting by the conditions. Well, that would have been the case for most drivers, but for Senna, it was just a chance to showcase his talent, and that's exactly what he did.
Challenging for that second place, and he's taken it. A magnificent bit of driving by Senna, who's now in second place.
While others crashed, like race leader Nigel Mansell, and drove around cautiously like Alain Prost, Senna drove like his career depended on it. With an unbelievable
Because it did.
drive, he made it up to second place through sheer pace alone. And he wasn't finished there. He continued to reel in Prost, who was suffering from brake issues, and who was trying to get the race stopped because of the intense rain that continued to fall. Senna eventually caught Prost and passed him right before the race was stopped.
With Alain Prost, and Prost is stopping, and Senna crosses the line before he gets there.
But the rule stated that the result had to be taken from the previous lap, so Prost was declared the winner, which Senna obviously wasn't too happy about. It would have been an incredible first win in an incredibly underperforming car, but still, he recorded a second place finish, and
Yeah, the Monaco is actually really hard track to race. So that's amazing.
in only his 6th F1 race ever, he made a huge mark on the sport with his undeniable talent. But the F1 world had seen nothing from the young Brazilian yet. He bought himself out of his Toleman contract at the end of that year and signed for the legendary Lotus team for 1985. He hoped it would be an improvement on his time at Toleman, but even he wouldn't have predicted what would happen that year. On the 21st of April 85, F1 held its second race of the season, the Portuguese Grand Prix, but it was no normal race. That Sunday, the Estoril track was absolutely soaked. After qualifying at the front and taking the first pole position of his career, he went on to win his very first Grand Prix the next day. But in true Senna style, it was no ordinary win. He took the checkered flag over a minute before anyone else. He absolutely crushed the competition. I mean, crush is almost an understatement. Michele Alboreto finished second in his Ferrari, and he was the only driver in the entire race that Senna hadn't lapped. I mean, things like that just didn't happen in F1. Along with Monaco, which was less than a year before, this was probably Senna's best drive of all time, and it was truly his breakout weekend. But he definitely didn't stop there. He took 7 poles that year, which was by far the most of any driver on the grid, and finished 4th in the standings. Everyone could see that F1 had a legend on their hands, and thought it wouldn't be long until he won a world championship. But like all things in F1, it wasn't going to be as easy as everyone thought. Senna stayed at Lotus for 2 more years, and went on to claim 5 more incredible race wins with the team. He put in some incredible performances, and in '86, his 7 pole positions were the most of any driver for the 2nd year in a row. At this point, everyone could see he was special, incredibly fast, consistent, and able to fight at the very front. And so was the car. But I don't want to just look at the results, because even though they were extremely impressive, stats alone can't define Senna's career. One of my favorite things from this period hasn't got to do with stats at all. It's simply this: the Lotus 98T. It was Senna's car that year, and it was special. And the turbocharged Renault V6 engine produced over 1,000 brake horsepower in qualifying spec. And of course, it had those iconic colors: the black and gold John Player special livery, the legendary yellow helmet in the cockpit. There's something magical about it that just can't be replicated today. Well, not on the track, at least, because off track is a different story. While the Lotus 98T is more or less resigned to the history books these days, its spirit lives on, and for that, I have to thank the loyal sponsor of the channel, Rec Watches. The feedback I got from you guys last time I mentioned Rec was incredible, and I stayed in touch with them, and we thought we had to give you guys another special deal. Look how incredible this watch looks, and the fact that it features original parts from Senna's Lotus 98T, chassis 4 to be exact, makes it such a unique conversation starter. So how exactly did they do this? this. They collaborated with classic team Lotus and reforged the original aluminium plenum tubes from the 98T to form the outer chapter rings. They haven't cut up the legendary chassis that Senna drove or anything, it's still intact and actually still does some historic racing today. What they did was exclusively use surplus engine parts from when the car was restored. And because of this, of course, this watch is a limited edition run. It's not like Lotus are making any more of these cars, so it's exceptional to have the opportunity to own a piece of it. But they're only making 989 of them, so they'll be gone pretty quickly. And by the way, they're all individually numbered. REC have spent nearly 2 years working on the design alone. The case construction is incredibly sleek, despite it having a chronograph complication due to the glass box design. There are many design references from the car on the watch too, with the black and gold color tones probably being the most noticeable. There's also the large 12 on the rotor and the movement backplate decoration that resembled an in-house chronograph movement with a 62-hour power. 15 of the 16 races that year. MP something time champion. His Taran and Prost still had his challenge point. Had his back to the Thank you once again to REC Watches for continuously supporting the channel. Now back to the Brazilian again to REC Watches for continuously supporting the channel. Now back to the Brazilian GOAT. Senna had his best season in '87, finishing third in the championship with 57 points. So after he raced with Lotus for 3 years, he decided it was time for a new challenge. In F1, you have to prove yourself against the absolute best, against proven race winners, world champions, and beat them. But that's not who Senna had as teammates. He hadn't been paired with any real competition, so there were still a lot of questions and debates over whether or not he'd fold against the likes of Prost, Piquet, or Mansell. Things changed in '88. Senna joined McLaren, and for the first time in his career, he was up against some serious competition. His teammate was none other than Alain Prost, who was already a 2-time champion. And coincidentally, in the very same year, McLaren produced something truly magical. The season became most well known for the legendary MP44, a car that won 15 of the 16 races that year. With Senna and Prost at the wheel, it was absolutely dominant. But it wasn't without its ups and downs for the team. Senna was immediately a threat to Prost, out-qualifying him in the very first race in Brazil by almost 7/10. It looked like he was going to be a problem for the Frenchman all season, and he was. Their first incident came at the Portuguese Grand Prix, where Senna jumped Prost at the start and took the lead. Prost went on to overtake Senna on the second lap, and then this happened.
Out of the final corner, he gets close up into the slipstream of Senna. He goes alongside. Senna tries to shut the door, and the two cars very nearly collide.
Prost wasn't a fan of being driven towards a concrete wall at 180 miles an hour, and this quickly set the scene for their relationship over the next 6 years.
Going back to Ayrton's overtaking maneuver, that was a bit hairy, huh?
Yeah, I was very surprised because normally, especially the first lap, when you do that with your teammates, you don't have a big problem like this, but I don't understand. He should have some reason to do it.
I want to show you the stats from their time as teammates though, because I think it's the best way to compare them. Across the 88 and 89 seasons, there were 32 races. Prost won 11 of them and took 4 pole positions. Meanwhile, Senna won 14 of them and took pole a mind-boggling 26 times. So, when their time as teammates came to an end, Senna won more races than Prost and out-qualified him. But across those 2 years, they both won a championship. So, on paper, they were even. But Prost had had enough. The mental toll of battling Senna for 2 years was starting to show. On top of that, their countless incidents like Suzuka 89 didn't help.
Any of them. This is the opportunity that Senna's looking for, and he's going through.
Oh
my goodness, this is fantastic. They beat. This is what we were fearing might happen during the race. I'm afraid
I saw this somewhere about the teammates crashing.
the self-inflicted Senna has got going again. He's back on the track. And Senna wins in Japan. Is there going to be a stewards' inquiry? Alain Prost will have one if he can.
La décision rendue par le Collège des commissaires sportifs du Grand Prix du Japon, excluant la voiture numéro 1 et le pilote Ayrton Senna, des résultats de l'épreuve.
What I'd like to do now is show you some footage which I think is quite relevant, because we're told that you can't use escape roads to rejoin the race. Escape roads are not for escaping through, they're in fact for stopping in, turning round and going out of. And for that is excluded from the Japanese Grand Prix. Where's the consistency? Can't be right.
Quand on est un grand pilote, quand on est parmi les meilleurs pilotes du monde, on n'avait pas le droit non plus d'avoir un accrochage stupide.
The way the whole affair has been treated is like I have total responsibility for everything that took place there. I was blamed for everything, and I was penalized for everything. I was treated like a criminal.
The situation forced Prost to leave for Ferrari in 1990.
You're the world champion, Alex?
Apparently, yes. I was not 100% sure. I know the regulation, but you never know how it's going to be interpreted. But to be very honest, I mean, I'm quite happy to leave, because I think it becomes absolutely impossible to work with Ayrton, and that's a good end of championship.
Aww. Kind of sad.
With Prost gone, Senna thought their rivalry would be over and that he'd be in for an easy year. But oh boy, was he wrong. Ferrari was strong, and Senna and Prost had another legendary battle through the entire year. They swapped the lead of the championship numerous times, but Senna eventually came out on top after deliberately hitting Prost at Suzuka.
Ayrton Senna will be in pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix. Prost was second fastest.
Normally, if the inside was clear, the inside for sure is better, but because it's dirty, the outside is better. Like Hungary.
Story down in the pit lane and on the grid is one of tension. With the World Championship up for grabs, everyone is extremely tense.
Thank you very much. Huh? I can't stand it. I can't stand this. It's a joke. After what happened last year, it's a joke.
Ayrton Senna actually walked out of the drivers' meeting today. He thinks that the pole position should be on the left-hand side of the grid, not on the right.
I was many times by the system. I told myself, today, no way. Today has to be my way.
And Senna sprints away, but Alain Prost takes the lead. It's happened. Alain Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately. This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner, but what has happened to Prost? He has gone off too.
O campeonato está terminado e Ayrton Senna é o campeão de 1990.
Tell us what happened on the first lap by Ayrton.
Well, unfortunately, we touched in the first corner when we were fighting for the lead, and we both went off.
How do you feel about being world champion?
It's not a bad feeling at all, is it?
Congratulations.
Across the year, Senna took
That was rough hit.
10 poles and 6 wins out of 16 races. Prost, on the other hand, took a grand total of 0 poles, but won 5 races. Once again, Senna proved he had something extra over the Frenchman, and of course, the rest of the grid. This trend carried on to 91, when he won his 3rd world title. This time, it was Mansell and Williams who put up the best battle, but Senna's speed was just too much. After beating Prost to 2 titles and Mansell to 1, and racking up pole positions at an insane rate, it was clear that Senna was already one of the best drivers F1 had ever seen. But the next couple of years weren't as easy. McLaren's car in 92 was no challenge for Williams' new active suspension FW14B. Mansell took an insane 14 poles and 9 wins in 16 races, easily winning the title. It was Senna's most difficult year in F1 so far. A slow car and even DNFs meant he only finished 4th in the standings with 50 points.
Les tractations ont été longues, mais l'on ne sait toujours pas qui sera le coéquipier de Prost. Toujours est-il que le triple champion du monde a signé pour 2 ans et commencera à courir en essai dès cette semaine.
It got a bit better in 93, but he finished runner-up to Prost again, who returned to Williams after taking a year off. But this just showed how brilliant Senna was, because in a far slower car, he was the closest to Prost across the entire year. But with Prost leaving F1 for 94, Senna took his seat and moved to Williams.
Ayrton Senna está correndo contra o tempo. Tem que se afinar com a equipe e ajustar o carro. Ele diz que está desconfortável. Este carro já está sem os componentes eletrônicos usados pelos carros do ano passado.
He would have been hoping to jump into a Williams that was as fast as their 93 car, but unfortunately, the racing gods had other plans. His move to Williams didn't bring the sort of success that he or the team expected. Their new car, the FW16, wasn't as fast as their previous two. On top of it not having the pace needed to fight for the title, Senna just didn't like it. He complained about the car's handling and mentioned how he had no confidence in its cockpit.
Is it generally more one balance than the other, or it's just changing? I was a bit more understood.
We're certainly not happy with the way things are with the car right as they are at the moment. The handling isn't particularly good.
In just the third race of the year, the legendary story of Ayrton Senna took a tragic turn. On the 1st of May 1994, the San Marino Grand Prix took place at Imola. The start of the race was chaotic. But Senna was still leading after taking pole position the previous day. But on lap 7, everything changed. To the fans, drivers and medics, it didn't look good.
Senna, yeah?
After Ayrton was extracted from the car and taken to the nearby hospital.
We got him out of the cockpit, got his helmet off, got an airway into him, and I saw from his neurological signs that it was going to be a fatal head injury.
But just hours later, we got the worst possible news.
But a spokesman for the hospital in Bologna said there was no chance he would survive. Yesterday, another driver, Roland Ratzenberger, died after crashing on the same circuit.
Roland Ratzenberger succumbed to injuries sustained in the accident which took place at Imola circuit during Saturday qualifying practice, April the 30th.
Beijo, Senna. Não te esquecerei nunca mais.
Era ídolo para mim. Ele representava muito o Brasil.
O povo brasileiro precisa de comida, educação e saúde e um pouco de alegria. A alegria foi.
Eu tenho tanto medo quanto qualquer outra pessoa de me machucar, sobretudo guiando um carro de corrida. O perigo é constante. And I know I can die.
It became the darkest weekend in the history of F1. The sport had lost one of its most talented drivers ever in the blink of an eye. If you'd like to see the full details of what happened that weekend, I made a full video on it a while ago, breaking down exactly what happened. You can watch that here if you haven't seen it already. Of course, everyone in motorsports was shocked, but instead of looking into his death, let's look back at what other drivers thought of Senna during his career, and no driver knew him better than Prost.
Sometimes I admit I was frightened by him. He was prepared to do anything.
I think that's one of the best quotes about Ayrton, because Prost knew how focused he was on staying ahead of his teammates.
He told me very often, Alain, I'm not motivated to race against these guys. I'm not motivated. Please come back.
But even with their fierce rivalry, he had an incredible amount of respect and admiration for Ayrton's skill.
When people ask me who was the best driver I ever raced against, I say Senna by a long way. I look back on those days now and think to myself, why did we put ourselves through all that? Why did it have to get so venomous? I used to say to people, you're a fan of Ayrton Senna? Good, that's fine, but please don't hate me. If we had to do it all again, I'd say to Ayrton, listen, we're the best. Between us, we can screw all the others.
But it wasn't just Prost. Almost every other driver recognized that Senna had something they didn't, something they couldn't put their finger on, something special.
I had one hero. His name is Ayrton Senna.
Senna's the guy you want to be.
Definitely. I think, well, I mean, there's been obviously lots of different champions along the way. But just as a kid, Senna was the first guy that I had noticed. He was the one that caught my eye when I was like 5 years old, watching the races on the weekends with my dad. And I started to follow him and started to read his books and started to watch his videos. And I loved the way he drove, I love his skill, I loved his aggressive style. I love how he stood up for things he thought were right. Just a cool balance, cool approach.
And that's two 7-time champions talking, so the quotes speak for themselves. There was more to just his heroics on track though. Ayrton Senna, the man, not just the race car driver, was truly special. He was loved by pretty much everyone in the paddock, and for good reason. They all knew that he was the sport's biggest star, and because of this, had the strongest voice amongst the drivers. He put this to good use plenty of times during his career, fighting with the FIA to have the drivers' opinions heard. The best example of this was actually during the 1994 Imola Grand Prix, after Ratzenberger's tragic death on Saturday. Senna met with the other drivers to discuss safety. He even visited the part of the track where Roland crashed to see if there could be any last-minute safety measures to put in place for the Grand Prix, but came to the conclusion that there was nothing F1 could do. Truly fucking heartbreaking looking back. His passion and love for the sport and dedication to improving safety was admirable. Along with his ridiculous talent, he gained from us all and cemented his place in our hearts even further. Even with Senna getting taken from us early, he left an undeniable legacy. To be honest, it's probably the most memorable legacy of any F1 driver ever. 3 world championships, 41 wins, 65 poles, 80 podiums, all in only 161 race starts. The impact he made on the next generation of F1 drivers is undeniable. Drivers like Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton, among dozens of others, have said Senna was their hero and inspired them to become F1 drivers. The way he drove, his approach to winning and his speed are all iconic. It's for these reasons as much as anything else that he's remembered so fondly by everyone in motorsports. There's no doubt that Senna would have won races in '94 and beyond, and more than likely would have won numerous more championships too, as he was only 34 when he passed away. How many championships would he have won if he hadn't have passed? Make sure to let me know in the comments.
The team that Ayrton started F1 with, Toleman, also had an incredible success story of its own. It was rebranded as Benetton and went on to win 2 drivers and 1 constructors championship in the following years. This achievement was made easier with the help of a certain team principal who, let's say, didn't always play by the rules and was one of the most controversial people in the history of the sport. I made a video about him, so make sure to watch it here if you haven't already. And as always, thank you for watching.
Oh my. This was something. Oh. I really feel so sad that his life ended so quickly. That he could really do amazing stuff. Like how like he was afraid about the safety on a track, and he died on a track as well. It's sad. So yeah, I really hope that you did enjoy this video. Hopefully I'm gonna see you next time. So yeah, take care, be careful, and yeah, hopefully I'm gonna see you next time. Bye.